Hello everyone, I'm Christina Roberts, a graduate student at Liberty University Online. And this week's discussion board, I will be addressing the significance of the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights served in part as an accommodation to the Anti-Federalists who had concerns over specific rights not being protected in the Constitution. Once the Constitution was ratified, the Federalists promised to add the Bill of Rights to address these concerns. The First Amendment was drafted by James Madison and states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." Of these specific rights listed, the most debated and controversial has been over the religious clause. It's important to examine the specific language used and the historical context to understand these challenges. The use of the word establishment is important in understanding its meaning and application. When the Bill of Rights was enacted, there were still established churches within the colonies. This meant that state taxes supported clergy of a particular denomination, and many of the laws were favored to support a particular sect. Such was the case in Connecticut under the Congregational Church. It was here that the Danbury Baptists felt the restrictions to their religious freedom and the reason for their letter to President Thomas Jefferson in 1801. Jefferson already had a reputation for religious freedom as he was a co-drafter of the Virginia Statute of Religious Liberty of 1786. This resulted in Virginia being the first state to formally disestablish the state church. This knowledge gave the Danbury Baptists hope in the newly elected Jefferson over how religious freedom would play out. They still had concerns over what they perceived as the ambiguity in the language of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. However, what was clear to them was the limit in power of the executive branch. As they stated, "We are sensible that the President of the United States is not the national legislature, and also sensible that the national government cannot destroy the laws of each state." It seemed that the Danbury Baptists were concerned that the ambiguity of the language could lead to an establishment of a national church and infringe on their rights of religious freedom further. Jefferson responded to assure them that the First Amendment was clear and guaranteed that the legislature, or Congress, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. He then added, thus building a separation between church and state. It's within this context that many of the challenges and complications within the First Amendment can be understood. I mentioned this last week, the case of Everson versus the Board of Education of 1947, in which Justice Hugo Black applied this phrase, and he also set a precedent by applying the Establishment Clause to the state level. In this regard, he states, "The Establishment of Religion Clause means at least this. Neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church, neither can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. No tax in any amount can be levied to support any religious activities or institutions, whatever they may be called, or whatever form they may adopt to teach or practice religion." Justice Black then appeals to the words of Jefferson, stating that the First Amendment was intended to erect a wall of separation between church and state. Due to this controversial decision, today many believe that this phrase is embedded within the Constitution, and it's often used to keep all religious influence away from government, and has dramatically changed the original intent of the First Amendment. As previously noted, the Danbury Baptists acknowledged their understanding of the limits within the executive branch, and Jefferson affirmed that it applied to the legislative branch only, not the state. Furthermore, even if Jefferson intended to apply it at the state level, it is still only in the context of an established church, not support or influence. The latter mindset is leading to more ambiguity within the Prohibition Clause, in that any appearance of government support leads to lawsuits that prohibit individuals from actually practicing religious freedom. This is why it's vital to examine and understand the original intent of the First Amendment.